I think you just look at the packs we put out, I suppose, and the increase in physicality. You know, it does come from individual players, and then other players respond to that in a unique manner, I guess. But also, I think in Europe, I think we've smartened up a little bit. You look at our turnover rate up to last weekend, it was the lowest in the competition. I think Leinster may be better now, but it just shows we weren't giving opposition any cheap opportunities. So with that, you're just creating more pressure, and certainly in the Northampton back-to-back, turning a bit of pressure into points. Again, from a backline point of view then, seeing Owen and Fonatia together has been pleasing. They've only played in Europe together. We haven't yet put them on the park around the league, but for different reasons, early season and the autumn. So that's a combination that, something that we've looked at. And obviously the wingers as well, we're getting them in the game more around early in phase counts. So that gives a bit of momentum to, again, increase the physicality. So yeah, there's a whole host of reasons, and some good work around our scrum. That's been pleasing to see. Dimitri clearly makes a massive impact. He's at the top of his game, and as I said, I could name check all the pack, but in terms of that group of forwards, it's something that we know we can perform at the highest level. I mean, the challenge is we're a team that's reality is we're still bottom of the league. So even though the European rugby's been nice for us, we've now got to turn that into our league form, not just this block, but for the rest of the season.
With Owen, how much potential does he have?
Oh, he's a wonderfully gifted footballer. I'm starting to see a man start to sort of come through now as well. The way he's picking his head up, comfortable talking around the group, putting other backs in good positions, but also barking at your senior players in the forwards to get out the way when they need to slot into a certain channel inside or outside them. He's showing those traits which we need around attacking players who've actually not just got the skill set, but like we've seen with our 10s, can actually coordinate and organise. And when you've got a player outside of 10 who can do it, with the skill set and also the ability to be a gain line merchant, there's a good sort of potential there. We're tapping into now quite heavily, and I think he can keep improving.
This week is going to be a really tough selection of 10 for you.
Yeah, it always is around those two. Just looking at, Sam's been really consistent the last couple of weeks, getting the benefits of the reasons I said earlier in terms of the team around him, and where we've had some physical ascendancy and a platform to do his work, but also a game that's minimal fuss, just doing what he needs to do. And sometimes, and this is perhaps us in other periods where we get a little bit desperate, he often tries to overdo things, and I understand that because of inadequacies elsewhere, but he's been really smooth around stuff that we're doing, and you've got to take that mindset into derby games. So he gives us that option, which, to be fair, Dan has done for years, and he's a world-class player in his own right. So across the 3 games, I think both will get a healthy share of rugby.
Talk about those 3 games, good as a coaching staff, 3 games, 10, 11 days, regions. What are your thoughts on that? Because obviously very difficult to play games 5 days after the other one.
Yeah, I think it's really exciting. We do get enthused by the challenge of the local derbies. Traditionally, have been good for us in terms of our mindset. To play these games. We probably the last 12 months or so, we've probably let sides come with us a little bit and haven't always won the physical battle. So there's a mindset for us. But it is then backing up the physical battles after 2 tough games in Europe. Can we do it again against the Scarlets? And the tough turnaround will be to Dragons on New Year's Eve, and that's where we will be leaning on a lot of our squad depth, and where we can perhaps rotate players in and out. And then I think the Blues game, depending on how the previous 2 have gone, is one that obviously we need to win in the context of the league, but is also one you want to take some stuff into Saracens too.
Is the Scarlets game different for Ospreys players and coaches?
I think it is to a certain degree. As a coach, we had a wonderful run for so long in it, and I think we were quite proud of the fact that our messages weren't changing. We were pretty consistent in terms of what people like Alan Wynne go onto the field with. It doesn't really matter in terms of players like him, Lydia. They'll do what they do regardless, but there's a lot more goes into it. We talk about some of the combinations and how people react to each other and the external pressure. There's a little bit there, perhaps. There's a little bit of niggle around a couple of parts of the game, and that's where you've got to then, get a good cold mindset to try working with the ref and understand the balance of when to be physical, when to have a bit of edge about you, but also when to be pretty clean on stuff. And the Scarlets one is probably the toughest challenge in that respect.
What did you go well? The champions, and how do you view that? the Ospreys for years and obviously we expected to beat the Scarlets, perhaps now, the Scarlets going well. What do you think of it?
I can't praise them enough. In some ways, I think it's difficult for us to swallow our end of season after being promising for so long. But it was credit to them. They've earned the right to brag in terms of being champions. But we believe in ourselves here. We respect fully what they do. I've got real respect for not so much the talent that's there, but how they harness the talent to work hard as well. They reload harder than most sides you see in terms of their attacking game. Defensively, I think Biden, has done some fantastic stuff there and has obviously nurtured guys who are, 4 or 5 of them the best guys over the ball you can get in this league, which is a challenge in itself. But also remarkably, a side that, isn't conceding many penalties. So that's, from a defensive coach point of view, is plaudits to him, as well as, I think, Johan as well. Where I've seen a difference internationally also is they can go to a tight game. I've seen them actually revert to driving game and be comfortable winning the game that way, as well as the great rugby they have played. So credit to them, and obviously the head coach there deserves credit for pulling all that together.
You were going through the losing streak before the Northampton victories. Do you doubt yourself as coach of the team? Because it's not something you've been through really before to that extent.
You don't doubt yourself per se. I mean, you've got to have a pretty thick skin in terms of the way you operate, but you do, ask the right questions of yourself and the messages you're trying to portray to players, and what they're hearing to what they're doing. And sometimes you have got to look at your coaching style and how you've got to adapt to certain situations, and it becomes a constant challenge. Some weeks you can't be fluffy because there's brutal truths that need to be there, but you're also mindful, regardless of who they are, top level players, there's always going to be, some sort of confidence that chips away in terms of the losses and, not accomplishing things that we want to. But, I think for the most part we've dealt with it in a mature way. We're still challenging the players the right way, and I've said before, they're challenging us.
Are you aware of that criticism sometimes comes in externally, social media and things like that?
I've got colleagues and friends who will make me aware of it. But I said, I think a lot of it you can't argue with. We've judged on results, and there's certain performances this year I'm certainly not proud of, and I'll take the brunt of that, and that's the reality of elite sport. And I think with all fair game in that respect, you've just got to keep all your attention to actually what is going to make a difference, A, to the team performance, but B, to what makes individuals tick as well. I've probably got to get my arse in gear and get I've got a few little tentative things that are there in the background, but I've got to follow up on a few things and get my wife off my back, really.
Gruff, how do you rate Stephen Jones as a coach? Do you see him as a future Wales backs coach, possibly?
Oh, he's a good man, and I think he's a real bright rugby man, and I think with people who've played good level rugby in the past, the real, bright, articulate ones will take the knowledge and experience they've had off some top coaches, which obviously some of us haven't been privy to at a different sort of ability. We've had to go down a different route. But he's taken on some real good, levels of knowledge and his own experiences and channeled that to his own sort of coaching work. And I fully respect that from former pros. And yeah, there's a real talented coach there. As I said earlier, I don't just respect the fact that the talent plays good rugby there, but also whether Stephen or Wayne or a combination of their environment, they work so hard off the ball. You look at how they get into good positions for Steph Evans to do his thing. Hadley Parks is because of how quickly they get into position. So that again is a sort of spins itself off from what you coach. There's detail there, but there's also someone who players will play for. So I have full respect for not just what Stephen's done, but all those coaches there, and I think there's a good coaching team there.
Do you see him stepping up one day with Wales?
I guess as he could do. He's a young coach, and I think he's probably he's had a good little time in Wasps, and he's still working his way through things. But I think it's just circumstances and time and experiences, and I think there's not many of us young Welsh coaches out there. Certainly backline ones, and I think that's something that the Welsh Rugby Union have got to look at, how we develop coaches to come through the system as former pros and non-pros also. I think there's something there that we've got to look at together. But yeah, he certainly could do.
Just to know, you're not here next season, so you can perhaps object about it. Alan and Jones, how important is it to the Ospreys, given that Rees and Dan have gone on, but people coming through that Alan wins here next season?
Yeah, I think it is. You can see his influence over the last couple of weeks, but I think people do talk about the leadership, and rightly so. You know, I've also seen just a second row alongside Bradley, who deserves a mention, but I think Alan Wynne has come back again remarkably from an international block and played some tremendous rugby the last couple of weeks. So that in itself is tough to replace. But you know, as a man, we keep hoping that his influence will rub off on others, and in the Six Nations, people have got to step up to the mark. You know, but also Alan Wynne needs to be looked after, which I think you know, the Ospreys will certainly do so to make sure he gets to the next World Cup in the right place.
And the final one, George North, he's the top at the moment. How big, if the Ospreys could get in, how big an advantage would be for next season?
Yeah, he's a huge talent, and I think we've seen with Scott and Aled coming in that, you know, it is pleasing to see, even though I'm leaving, that you know, the Ospreys have got ambition. I think it's important that people know that. The current squad need to know that there's people coming in who I think are going to make a real difference and can evolve us even further. You know, likewise, George fits that bill. British Lion. You know, he's had a good little stint in England, which I think helped mature him coming back over the bridge, and he'll be an asset to any team. People like Ben John came off with his shoulder, which wasn't HIA happily enough, so he's come through that, and he's involved in some training. Likewise, Cracknell is working through just shoulder niggle as well. You know, but remarkably, we're doing okay on injuries.
What has Sam got to do, you know, Griff, as his backs coach, to return to the Wales mix?
For me, it wouldn't be far off what he's done in the last couple of games. It'll be probably a remarkable stat, but he only carried the ball once in Northampton, and for me, he was just, and that was actually off a counter-attack where he was cornered in as well, and he was mature enough not to kick the ball away foolishly and kept hold. He had another one or two of those instances on the weekend, and that's just been smart. And then there's other times where he's just staying clean, he's playing the centres in, he's bringing the wingers in the game, and then, because he, like our nines, are going to be marked men, and for the team to function, sometimes it's around, you know, how he can bring others to the game, or then see kick space, listen and trust what is outside of him as well in terms of the communication, and just, you know, let things flow seamlessly from there.
Is there an element, this is an unofficial trial, Wales trial?
It could be. I mean, all those local derby games. To be fair, the Welsh coaches are in and around each environment, watching every game. You know, so I think all of them are unique trials in their own right. You know, but hopefully you see what we've come on the back of Europe. There's some good performances there, and hopefully further good performances around our next European block. So you would hope there's, you know, people, you know, see the players over a fair period, really.
Just revisiting Gareth's question, it is critical Alan Wynne stays.
I think it's important for the Ospreys, you know, to retain, you know, players who are at the heartbeat of what we do, you know, historically and going forward. And, you know, Al's a real proud Osprey, you know, is doing his best around the scenes for the young players to find their way through a scratchy patch of form. We've done it in Europe. He'll want to do it in the league campaign, and he'll just want to keep doing it for as long as he can.